All right, so we're just going to get started with, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the work you do. So Rakaya, why don't you give us a go and a start?
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be part of that panel. It's a very important topic, and I'm sure that we have so many things to share. So as you said, I'm a journalist. I'm French. I'm based in France. I confronted from the beginning with the systemic barriers, being a black and Muslim journalist in a predominantly white country. Just the fact that I addressed issues related to race, to gender, and to human rights in general made me the target of online cyberbullying from the very beginning. But it came obviously from the far right, which was something that I expected, but not only from the far right. So it was online, it was also from the mainstream sphere, and it took different forms. So in my country, I was one of the first public personalities to sue someone over rape threat on Twitter. It was in 2013, and I was fortunate because I was able, materially, financially, and mentally to have a lawyer and to find a person. So we had a trial, and I made a documentary out of that issue to address hate online in general. And the person was sentenced. But to me, it was just exposing how being a woman and being from a minority was a multiplier of online threat. Especially, there is an Amnesty International study that says that women are more likely to be exposed to online violence than men, but among women, non-white women have 34% of chance to be exposed to violence, and black women 84%, which means that as a black woman, whatever you say publicly exposes you to much more hate than anyone else. The other forms of hate that I've been exposed to are judicial threats. So I've been exposed to what we call slap trials, which are defamation trial that you face because you speak up and someone tries to intimidate you and sue you. I have been facing many trials, and I think it's something that we will discuss. I also have been surveilled by foreign countries. And I've also been exposed to, it's a very specific case, but to government-funded cyberbullying by an organization which was funded by my own government. And it's like, so I decided to prosecute the government, but it's still being investigated by like a body that is supposed to deal with financial misuse. So it's many forms, and I'm still fortunate to be able to be here to expose what I experienced, because there are many activists, journalists who are not even able to defend themselves and to speak publicly, and especially in that international platform.
And Elena, tell us a little bit about you and Hate Aid.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. So Hate Aid is a human rights organization. We are defending human rights in the digital space, and we have started as Germany's first federal consultation for victims of digital violence. And from the beginning, my first two cases that came into our consultation, where we do emotional support, psychological support, security advice, which is really important when you talk about doxing. Later on we will talk about the different forms of targeting journalists and female journalists, but doxing is one. So security advice and then communication advice, but we also support in going to court. Also we finance civil court cases for the victims and for the people affected. And so the two first cases that we had in our consultation were one female politician and one female journalist, and attacked online. And it kind of shaped, I mean, the consultation is open for everyone. Now we do lots of lobbying and advocacy work, especially in Germany, but also in Brussels. But the consultation is open for everyone, but that kind of shaped, how we started working we looked at very gender sensitive. It was from the beginning, it was a topic how women are differently assaulted than than men, how also non-binary people are very differently assaulted, so the gender aspect of violence, but also what you were mentioning, the discriminatory markers, I would call them. No? You're a woman, that is the first discriminatory marker. Then you're a person of color, discriminatory marker. Maybe you are of Muslim faith, then that's another. And with every marker that you have, violence grows. So whenever you do something, then the violence and the hate that you receive is also dependent on how many markers you have, and it exponentially grows with that.
So I wear multiple hats. I will talk about what is relevant right now. I currently run a project called the Ghana Women Expert Project, which tracks the number of women who are interviewed in Ghanaian media for their expertise. And how I get to that is because I used to co-host one of the most listened morning shows on radio in Ghana. And you could listen to radio or watch TV. Ghana is a very radio country, so everybody listens to radio for months, and you will not hear women speaking as authority figures. And when they do get attacked. When I was on a show for 10 years. I experienced cyberbullying. I was harassed. I was intimidated, and I think we're going to get into that. But I'm a journalist, and I run this project, and the aim is to get media organizations to realize the violence they do to women when they don't condemn and they don't support journalists, and they don't support women politicians as well.
I just want to actually stick with you and follow up. How frustrated do you get when you hear people say this is a pipeline problem? We can't find the expert in this field who is a woman. What do you tell people?
I sort of worked on a short documentary, which is on YouTube right now, and so went around speaking to producers and to women. And the producers were like, we can't find the women. They will say they don't have time. They can't make it to the studio. Number one, it's the design of the program. If you're thinking of including women, then you will think about the time of the program. You schedule a major program at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning in a country where women have multiple responsibilities. They're not going to be able to show up. And also, it's very easy to call a man up whenever you want to do your interview in a newsroom and get them to talk. But women do other things in life. And so when you call a woman and they say, oh, what do you want to talk about? And you tell them, and they're like, could you give me 10 minutes or 20 minutes to prepare? And you're like, I don't have that much time. It's not a pipeline problem. It's a media problem. It's a production problem. And that's easy to solve if we would do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I certainly try to keep in mind as well is if we are struggling to find somebody, it's also sometimes it's about reaching out to people. And I'll hear a lot of women say, I'm not ready. And I'm like, trust me, you're ready. There are 3 men ahead of you who claim that they know this topic, and they actually don't know it very well.
But also it's about, I think, to add something to this, it's about the repercussions for women, because we did a study, we published a study with the Technical University of Munich at the beginning of this year, where we asked, it's the biggest study that has been done in Germany on this topic, where we asked people from politics, journalists and activists about how digital violence influences their work. And exponentially more women said that they hesitate to go into a very exposed position because they are afraid of the repercussions of digital violence that they are going to see. So this is also a reason. You go to this program and you know what is going to happen then.
Absolutely. In the surveys that we have done, women have said the same thing, that, I don't want to go on TV and get attacked for how I look. I don't want to be attacked for who I'm married. I don't want my body to be spoken about, so I'm definitely not going to do it.
And also, that's why they're also saying we need more time to prepare, because every mistake they make, they pay more, they pay harder, no? They pay more for that.
Rakaya, can you talk a little bit more? I think it's very interesting that you decided to launch a legal case. That's rare, and that's fighting back at a very high level. Tell us a little bit more about that. And was that mentally stressful? Did you feel empowered?
The thing is that as I was threatened online, I got much support, which really allowed me to think of myself as someone who should be supported and defended. So I reached out to my lawyer, and at the same time, as a filmmaker, I decided to make a documentary, not only to focus on my case, but also to understand the dynamics of cyberbullying. So I interviewed other people who were facing online harassment for many different reasons, because they were women, because they were Jews, because they were LGBTQIA, or even for no reason. Sometimes it just doesn't even have to do with your identity. And so to me, and I also was prompted to sue the person because we were able to find them. They were not, good enough to hide their identity online. So that was also something that helped me. And so confronting the person, having them, so it was a man actually, having him coming in a court and having, because when you post something online, it's not the same as when you have a judge reading what you've told and you have to explain yourself. So it really reverses the balance. But I can also tell about other legal initiative that I took that didn't go that well. For example, I've been defamated against in many different occasions, accused of many things, of being, it's like the reversion, like as an anti-racist and anti-sexist woman, I'm accused by white people of being racist and of being sexist. And trying to just make my case and to sue those persons, I didn't win. And I also I'm also Muslim, I'm very vocal about Islamophobia, which makes me being accused of supporting terrorism. And there is a very famous philosopher who accused me of arming the hands of terrorists. And I sued him, I appealed, and it was released. So I'm really considering, it was just a couple of weeks ago, the second release, I'm considering just going to the Supreme Court, because to me, even if I don't win, it's a way first to document what's going on, because, accusing someone of something like that is something, but having, spending hours in a court, in a trial, trying to justify that, to me tells a lot about the time we're going through. So, and at the end of the day, the man, who is very, very prominent in France, he said that had he known he would brought him to the court, he wouldn't have said the thing in the same way. So even if he won, I think that he will think twice before accusing someone of something so serious, actually. So I will see if I go to the Supreme Court, but I think that if we have the means and we have the support, it's important to use those spaces, because there are also spaces for archive. Like people, when they try to study a time, they go to the courts and they go to what has been registered in courts.
Do you have a sense in terms of like you say, it dissuades others who see this court case from engaging in that same behavior? Do you have any qualitative or quantitative data? And that's also probably a question for Hate Aid. Do we have a sense of whether the courts actually do work in terms of dissuading people, the general population, from engaging in this misogynistic behavior?
I think that most of the people, unfortunately, are discouraged because it takes a lot of time, and you're also exposed to people repeating over and over what they've said to you publicly. So if you face defamation and you go to a court, you will have to hear again someone saying the same thing that they said, and sometimes even worse. Like I can think about a case in which I was harassed also by another public personality. Like the person kept speaking about me online in a very negative way, and I've documented how much he spoke about me. Like it was like in 2 years, 500 tweets, which is like, it's obvious. So once I said that he was a harasser, he sued me out of defamation. So I was the person who had to defend myself in a court of accusing someone who was attacking me. And I understand why, it can be discouraging, because even if you're the victim, at the end of the day, you have to defend yourself and to prove that you have done nothing wrong. So I won that case, but at the end of the day, it cost me so much time. Like I had to just think about how to defend myself, to present myself as someone who was not an assaulter, someone who would define. So who would, how can I say that, defame someone? So it's It's really difficult. I think that we'll go through that, but I think that we need to maybe think more strategically and to organize ourselves, not individually, but maybe more collectively.
So strategy.
So
Annalena, and also you guys also have...
We based our organization on thinking that it will dissuade people. If we sue perpetrators, this will dissuade people from spreading more hate. And what we did at the beginning was to say, okay, we are going to gather money and we are going to finance all these civil court cases, like yours, for example. You have somebody who arrests you, then we go with you, we try criminal court. If it doesn't work, and we go and work with law enforcement agencies. We work very closely with the law enforcement agencies in Germany, the federal ones and also the ones in the different countries. And if it doesn't work in criminal court, then we go to civil court and we make it public. So we also support public politicians, very well-known politicians, very well-known journalists, and we also encourage them to talk about it so they can be influencers for others. That they can use their reach on social media and talk about this and say, okay, we are not going to let this happen to us. Because what we are seeing also on social media is a normalization of violence against female journalists, but also against politicians, against other public figures. So as long as the courts don't act, as long as we don't go to the courts, then at some point people will feel like this is normal. And we've already reached this point, because now we have done, I think, 250 court cases. We went to the Supreme Court and we won with a female politician, and it was a landmark case in Germany, and all other cases now that we do now with female politicians and journalists, you can see it because it was the first court didn't accept that it was sexual harassment and misogyny, so they didn't see it as a hate crime, and they said this is all covered by freedom of speech, and so we appealed and appealed and appealed, and then the Supreme Court looked at it and said, okay, well, the other courts have judged this on the grounds of the analog world. But now we are in the digital space, and there are other rules for the digital space. Because when somebody harasses you, when somebody spreads lies about you, the whole world can see it. So the reach is completely different if I'm going to do it in a private space. It's also the written word. So there were certain categories where the Supreme Court said, they didn't judge it right, and we appealed, and then we won the whole case, and it really changed how now courts in Germany are looking at these cases. So I think it's really, really important, and you asked for qualitative expertise or quantitative. We don't have them in these cases, but we can see them from other fields. For example, if we look at file sharing, where a lot of people 10 years ago used to download music and videos and things all the time, and it was illegal, and everyone felt that, but everyone is doing it, so...
It's
like
changing the norms.
Exactly, and then all of a sudden, in Germany, we had all these civil cases, and everyone knew someone who had to pay something because they downloaded music, and all of a sudden, everyone went to Spotify or to Netflix. So, and this is kind of what we are aiming at in Germany as well. Sue people, also this is very important for the courts, because then they have to deal with these cases, and they usually don't have a lot of experience because they haven't judged a lot of cases in the digital space. So create new jurisprudence. And also what we do is we sue the platforms. Because this is the other topic. No? If you go to the courts and go to have a criminal or civil case against the perpetrator, your content is still going to be online, even if he has been condemned. The content is also online. So it's also about the visibility of the content, and there the platforms come into play.
And we've talked about the sort of big legal stuff, but Nana, I'm wondering if feel free to comment on the legal stuff, but also I'd love to ask you about what is the responsibility of editors and newsrooms? Can they help, and how can they help?
Well, I think I wish somebody had told me before they shoved a microphone in my hands and put me in a studio to do the work that I did. Our show is a politics and policy heavy show, and so you're grilling politicians, you are interviewing ministers, you are analyzing policy issues you're going to be hard and critical. I wish somebody had told me what to expect down the pike. And somebody had said, these are the resources available. And so that would be the responsibility of editors in a newsroom to say, well, because you're doing this and because we live in this new age where we are all online, you might get attacked. And when you do, these are the kinds of things that we can do for you. And so we will support you to file a complaint with the police. And in cases where we can identify the people behind these accounts, just like in your case, we will proceed to take them to court so you can hold them accountable and get some justice. And also set a precedent so that it doesn't happen to anybody. I didn't get any of that. And I don't see media outlets doing that. So I think that's one responsibility. Defend your journalists, train them, give them digital training so they can survive online. But also, outright come and condemn when these attacks are going on. We don't hear that often, at least in the Ghanaian context. We don't hear that often that, journalists are attacked online or attacked by politicians, and media outlets, out of fear of retribution, I guess, choose to stay quiet. At least I was encouraged not to, make noise about it, it will just go away.
Because it shouldn't be about you.
Yeah, exactly. You should never be the story. And I wish I had been the story. I wish I had done what you did. I wish I'd gone to court. Because it was, the mental weight alone is unbearable. But, you're not supposed to be the story. We don't have protection for you. So, just keep your head low, endure it, and you'll survive. But I think media outlets have a responsibility to better protect the journalists that work for them in working with law enforcement and with state agencies to make this happen.
I want to take a pause now because this is not the only conference that has this kind of panel talking about the intimidation of female journalists or female professionals. And I actually want to flip things around and focus a little bit on the glass half full. I personally feel there are advantages to being a female journalist. When you're out in the field, especially in many developing countries where it is very patriarchal, the women will not speak to male journalists. They'll only speak to female journalists. The ability of a female journalist to walk into a conflict area where men are carrying guns and sort of bring the temperature down to calm people in that room so that you can conduct an interview. You can go into the kitchen in a way that a white male journalist cannot. So I see being a female journalist as an asset and a superpower. And I want to actually sort of flip a little, because we've been focusing on being attacked all the time, and we are not victims here. So I would love to go down the line and ask each of you what you think makes you the superpower. What is great about being Black and female, and so on and so forth. Rakaya, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you for bringing that perspective. I would say that being a woman, being Black, being Muslim, brings me a way to see the world that is very specific, and a way to understand so many dynamics that I wouldn't have if I was someone else. So I think that it just gives me a lens and a way to report that I can value, actually. And of course I can speak to people in a way that other people couldn't speak, but I can understand why some people would be angry if something happens, why, like how, for example, a government measure affects a specific part of the population, and in that way, because I can interact with some people in a very different way. So I know that, for example, as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, I have reported on topics in a way that actually wouldn't be the same if it came from someone who was from a very privileged background. So my superpower, I would say, is to be able to see the unseen and to report on the unseen. And my goal as a journalist is just to give a platform to those who usually don't have a voice.
So I think in my case, I'm a white woman in a very white country. But as a woman in this country, I have had from the beginning of my childhood this discriminatory experiences. So sexual violence, misogynist comments in university, in the workplace. I used to be a journalist as well. It was horrible as a woman. So, and still it is. I move a lot around in politics and advocacy work, and it's still, and also now our work is attacked very strongly by the right-wing activists, because of course with the success, there comes also the backlash, and it is always because I'm a woman, but I think because of that, there's especially also leading an organization that has is consulting people who are affected by digital violence, in almost all of the cases, discriminatory violence. This gives me a different perspective on that, because I have not been in this privileged place as a white male, and I have lived discrimination myself, so yeah, there's just a different sense to this. And I also think that as a woman, we are 2 women now, 2 women CEOs of the organization, that we are the faces leading the defense against, yeah, this violence, against the right-wing backlash. I think it's a really strong sign also for, and gives people hope, that it's not 2 white male people, but it's us as a female pair. And I think that's, yeah, that could be a superpower.
I joke that we are all oppressed differently. And so in general society, I'm a woman in Ghana. I belong to, even though women are more than 50% of the population, we're still marginalized. But I come from an ethnic group that is a dominant ethnic group. So there's privilege there. And that means that there are spaces I can enter that other people cannot enter. But also by virtue of education, there are things that I can see that other people cannot see. And so because of all of these layers of privilege, and also because of the marginality that I experience, there are things I can see, stories that I can identify in a newsroom that I would say, oh, I think a lack of water supply to this community is a matter of politics. And my male colleagues would be like, no, it's not politics. And I'm like, when women don't have water to cook, that's politics. There are things I can see that other people will not see. And I think that's a superpower. The fact that I can get to be in a space and be like, especially when I was on the show, at the time I was one of 2 women on morning radio in Ghana. We have like 400 outlets. And so just being one of the women in the space and saying, we cannot do this is unacceptable, these stories are important to tell, and then pushing to get those stories, and I think that's a superpower, and that's a privilege I cherish.
Great. I'd like to try to make this interactive and bring in questions. So for the last half or last quartile, tripartite, sorry, on time that we have, I'd love to see if people have questions. But just to kick things off, we do have a Slido slide to get people sort of interactive and sort of engaged. And the question is, what advice helps women hesitant to enter journalism due to risks? So if you can pull that question up, and people can, I think, use the QR code to input your thoughts, that would be fantastic. And while we're waiting for that to come in terms of your responses, I want to ask that as a sort of a question to each of the panelists. So what advice would you give to women who are hesitant of going into the journalism field? What would you say to them?
Oh, people have said to me, I might get attacked, and I'm like, women get attacked anyway. So just do it. Go in and use your voice. And I've had people say, I don't think I will ever be prepared. And I'm like, have you heard the men on these networks? Have you heard the men who dominate these spaces? So just go ahead and do it. And then learn, you can learn on the job. That's the good thing about journalism. It's like while you're in the newsroom, you can learn and you can pick up new skills. And so basically this is what I tell people. Just go do it anyway, because there are people who are not as skilled as you are, or as prepared or as thoughtful, who are dominating the space. So go do it anyway.
And Elena?
So from my lens, I would say, come prepared. Every crisis can also be, if you get through it in a crisis is always a crisis, but if you get through it if you come in it prepared, if you know what's going to happen, if you know what you and your support network, this is the other advice that I would give, have a support network. If everyone knows what to do, then it can even be a strengthening experience, because you've survived it and you never lost control. You were always not the passive in the passive role, but you actively also interacted in your crisis. So I think this is really important. Come prepared and have a good support network. Have people around you. Prepare yourself, people that you can trust. and then just do it.
Yes.
I'd say that maybe you also should reach out to female journalists who are already in the profession, who are already active, because it's easier to understand your work to the path of someone who's experienced what you are going to do and to go through. And I think that also, we haven't spoken about that, but unions can also be very active, so unionizing can be very helpful, and I think that they have also a role to play in the protection of journalists in general, but female journalists, and to leverage in media outlet, how can I say that, systems of protections and mechanisms that will help to respond to threat, whether it's online, whether it's offline. So I think that being part of a group, maybe a union or even a group, there are many coordinations of female journalists that exist. Being part of such groups is also very helpful, because that gives you resources, that gives you support, that gives you also the ability to know the experience of people who were there before you.
Great. And I see that we have some responses. I have a little bit of a problem. That monitor is far too small for me to read, so I'm going to have to stand up and see some of the responses and see if the panelists have reactions to it. One person is writing, learn the difference between actual threats and the stuff you can ignore, the stuff that is going to go away anyways. As somebody else actually echoing what Kaya says join networks or groups of female journalists. Someone else said search for other women and always help out other female colleagues. Let's see what else. Yes, female community. Community is really a big theme that I see here. And yeah, look out for other women. Try to work in a place that has mechanisms to support you and that takes an approach where the safety of the team is at the center. So that's a question that young journalists can ask when they are actually at the interview stage, a question for the employer, right? So this is all fantastic. Make your social accounts in the digital space private, hide your home address, Google yourself, and then get started. And there are actually software or companies that work on deleting your data so that you don't get doxxed. I mean, Delete Me is one that a lot of the digital security folks recommend. I wonder if there are any questions now for the panelists, or are people shy this morning? Oh, someone all the way in the back? Yes, right there. Thank you very much. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Xiaoying Zhang. I work for International Relations Deutsche Welle. Actually, I do not have questions to the panel, but I'd just like to take the opportunity to add 2 points to the whole discussion. From my point of view, I think as a part of the strategy or solution to digital violence against female journalists should be to win over men as our allies. And as we know, most of the intimidations online or even offline come from men against women or female journalists. So I think one of the initiatives launched by UN Women, which is called He for She Ambassador, for example, is a good example, and our TV host, Jafar Abdul Karim, is one of them, and he hosts several formats on DW Arabic. That's one point. The second point is we as a media organization, for example, SDW, we have tried to find ways to encourage female journalists to do more, to be more self-confident. That's one of the reasons we joined the BBC 50/50 project 3 years ago, and a community of joining of the editorial teams who have joined this challenge is growing and growing. That is, from my point of view, also a very great part of the solution. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, let's turn this into a question. I wonder, are newsrooms working with each other in France, for example, on this kind of matter, and also in Germany, in Ghana, if you guys can talk about that?
From what I know, I don't think so. I think that you have networks of women journalists which exist across newsrooms. You also have a new network of non-white journalists, which is very recent, which exists across the landscape. But I haven't seen a mechanism or a reflection on how they could work together to face those threats that are increasing. We haven't spoken about AI, but how it's possible to leverage, harassment which much more impact, and it's possible to create, fake misrepresentations with deep fakes, and mostly when it comes to women, it's sexualized, so it's a way to humiliate women in the public sphere, and it has happened a lot, and there is something that should be thought about because it's being more and more used and more sophisticated, and the victims are, even if I would say the targets are mostly women. So it's a reflection that should be taken over in a very, even like across the newsrooms, but even globally. It shouldn't stick to the borders of our respective countries.
I don't know if either of you guys have any.
So the project I run, number one, I have not seen networks in Ghana, media outlets sort of working on a project to increase the number of women who participate in media. But the project I run, the Ghana Women Expert Project, seeks to address that. And so we do surveys and we share the results with these media outlets. And what we have found is that when outlets emerge as, at the bottom of the rankings, they try to do better. And so this sort of gradual increases in the women who are appearing as experts. But what we also found is they now interview women, but it's on the soft issues, it's on relationships, entertainment, not on politics or policy and those things. And when they come, if they would give a man 10 minutes to talk, they're giving a woman 3 minutes. And so there isn't a concerted effort, but the project seeks to draw attention to what this does to basically when you exclude women's voices from the public square, how that then affects the design of the public space.
Fantastic. Next question. I guess it's a quiet morning then. I'm going to throw some questions and I'll take a moderator's prerogative and keep asking questions until... Oh, there is one question? Oh. Over there. Okay, I see it. Yeah. Hi.
You were speaking earlier about taking things to court. I would just be curious on the various legal frameworks that you're coming from, what the biggest gaps are.
It's for you, I think.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear the beginning of the question. Sorry.
It's really about the chances of success in taking anything to court.
I'm not taking anything to court. I'm trying to choose the cases. For example, the last one I told you about the person who accused me of being a terrorist. I knew that I had very few chances to win, but to me it was a platform because court cases are public, so people can come and attend and see and understand the dynamics of power. So there were many people who came and attended the trial and were shocked by the dynamics, the fact that I had to explain myself about something I had nothing to do with. So to me, it can be strategic to document what's going on, and it's also something that I will use as a journalist because I obviously will write about it. I took notes, so I will write about it. But of course, I can't sue anyone. I just try to pick the ones I can handle mentally also, and the ones that to me make a reason for existing. Thank you.
So what we do is we have two sorts of cases. We have the cases where we are process financer in the civil cases. So we look at those and look, okay, which case has a chance by German law, and then we go for it. And then there are these cases where they are in the middle. They probably have not been tried. So then strategically we say, okay, it is important to take that to court because we're going to try to make this also a news story. And even if if we lose in court, then the consequence could be to say, okay, we need a law. because there's a gap here. So use these strategic cases to say even a loss can be a win later if you then start a discussion in society that there's a gap here, and we are in a new field in the digital space. There's still a lot of legislation that, and a lot of practice in law that has not been done in all of the countries. So yeah, this is about how we do it. And we have changed legislation. I mean, 3 years ago, there was a whole new package of legislation passed because we had so many women in our consultation who came in and were threatened with violation online. And that was not a crime in Germany, because in the analog world, this didn't happen to women a lot. So to violate you, nobody came to you on the street and said that to you. But online, that became an increasingly huge problem. And so what we did was, we couldn't tell the women to go to court because, yeah, they would lose. We still filed the cases anyways, because to make a stand, filed criminal charges. And then when this new law package was, when that came up to discussion, we were invited to the German parliament and we said, okay, we need a new law here, because there is a new incident that is really harmful to women and it needs to be criminalized. And now we can tell all the women that come into our consultation, yes, no problem, we file criminal charges because we have this new law. So I think there's always an opportunity there as well.
Great. Well, this is actually all the time that we have. So I want to thank Rakaya, Annalena, and Nana Ama for your time. Thank you, and give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.